Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. So it's August 31st. This podcast will drop on August 1st. I'll be taking a week off to just kind of reset and get things ready for the next season. So it'll be 20 episodes of season 3 when this one comes out. It's actually coming out right before the 20th anniversary of September 11th. So it is totally fitting that I have this guest because she actually made a documentary film, No Responders Left Behind, about 9/11 first responders. And Kelly Zemnickis is someone I met online in the comedy circuit, and I would say, became friends. I would consider her someone that I don't know very well, but I really like and will continue to form a relationship with. And she's really great. She's from Canada. I think she might be, now she's my second Canadian guest, actually. I was going to say the first. She's my second one. First Canadian comedian guest, does that count? And she's done this amazing documentary that I can't wait to see. It'll be on Discovery Plus. So if you have Discovery Plus, look out for it. I think September 9th when it comes out. But I really want to, first of all, promote that. I think what I learned in talking to her about that, and we'll talk about the process of producing a documentary, we had a really interesting chat because she has a lot of things that are going on, and she's worked in entertainment and television for a long time on the production side and the back side of things. And what I got from her regarding the documentary was just the amount of dedication it takes to get things done. And I think that's one thing people don't think about when they see a movie or TV show or even listen to a podcast or anything. A lot of times people will look at what someone else does and their accomplishments and not think about the work that it took to get there. And they might almost get jealous, like, oh, well, I wish I could make a movie, or I wish I could do that. But you can, but it takes a long time. And I think the 5-year process to make a documentary just shows that. But it also shows that if you dedicate yourself to something, you will achieve it. You might not achieve the documentary getting onto a major network, but you might achieve actually finishing it. And that's even how I felt working on my comedy lately. I just have to remember not to compare, not to think about what other people are doing, but really just stay dedicated to the craft I'm doing. I don't know if anyone needs to hear that, but that's what I got from Kelly, was really listening and thinking, yeah, you know what I admire is she sticks with it. And that's something I like to think I do and I want to do more of. This episode, it was interesting because there's always different parts of people. And when we talked about why Kelly got into comedy, she'll talk about her friends, I would say soulmate and her best friend and lover of her life, the cancer diagnosis he had and the loss of him. And we both got emotional. We both cried. And I guess this could be a trigger warning that, maybe if someone did lose someone recently, it might be difficult to listen to. Neither one of us dwells on anything, but I think it's fueled both of our desires to just keep doing things and think about how loss affects us. And I don't want to tell her story right here, but I will say from my perspective, I mean, today's Overdose Awareness Day. That's in the U.S. anyway. And of course I thought of my younger brother and who I lost, I guess it's 12 years ago now. And one thing that loss and a couple other losses, I lost one of my best friends, Doug, to cancer, and I lost my uncle to cancer. And those are the major, I lost my grandma too, but I will say that those 3 were the major ones for me that really changed my life and affected my life in a certain way. And I strongly believe that the way we can best honor and remember people is by just keeping going and by just doing the things that we want to do that really they can't do maybe anymore, or maybe they wouldn't want to. Like, I don't know if any of them or my grandma, I don't know if any of those people would have wanted a podcast. I don't think so. But I do think that there are things in my life that I do to honor them that really just help me with it when I'm grieving. I don't think grief stops. I don't think grief stops after a week or 2 weeks or 5 years or 10 years. But I think what we do with it changes. And so I really appreciate Kelly taking the time to talk to me about a major motivation for her, a major thing that happened in her life, a major loss for her, and how it affected her moving forward. And I hope that someone listens and and hears it and feels the warmth that I felt listening back, just knowing that I was kind of walking in memory of some people that day that we had that conversation, even now as I'm talking about it. I think that's it. So, like I said, going to take a week off, so there will be a gap. I'll be back. I'll be promoting this episode again next week because I really want to, especially around 9/11, the 20-year mark. It's big, and there's all these like memes, never forget, hashtag never forget. But the truth is that people forget, and people move on. Something else happens. So this documentary is really important, and continuing to talk about these things are really important because there's a whole generation of kids right now who didn't experience this, for one thing. I know it's something I'll never forget. I was in a newsroom. I was working in San Diego as a student. I was in a newsroom, and we all got called in because school had been canceled. We all got called in that day, and I was just at the news desk just watching TV, but working. So I couldn't react. There was no emotional reaction. It was just kind of making sure we got news out in this small newsroom in San Diego. And I remember all of us in the parking lot around 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., I don't know, when we finally went off the air that night, then crying, then standing together and starting to process. So yeah, it is a thing to never forget, but and then we had a major ending to the U.S. presence in Afghanistan in the last week, and that's a huge milestone too. And I think this episode, it's really there's a lot in it because it's really light and fun, and we have a good time. But then there's also just some things to think about here too. So I'm glad that this is the way I'm ending season 4. In honor of John Feal, who is featured in the No Responders Left Behind documentary, I will be donating to the Feel Good Foundation, which I'll be linking to in the show notes. So I think that'll do it for the start of the podcast. I kind of went up and down there, I know, but thanks for bearing with me, and I look forward to you hearing this episode. Take care. Welcome to More Than Work, the podcast reminding you that your self-worth is defined by more than your job title. I'm Rabia, an IT project manager, comedian, nonprofit volunteer, and sometimes activist. Every week, I'll chat with a guest about pursuing passions outside of work or creating meaningful opportunities inside the workplace. As you listen, I hope you'll be inspired to do the same. Here we go. All right, everyone. I have another person who I met online that's a comedian that I'm really excited to talk to because she's just doing some cool stuff. So Kelly Zemnickis, she is a comedian, a freelance writer, a documentary filmmaker, and a YouTuber. Did I get everything, Kelly?
I think so. Yeah.
Well, and you have a YouTube show, I guess. So say, and you're a baker, really, yes, in my opinion. But yeah.
I do a lot of things. Oh, thank you so much. This is awesome to get to chat with you because that's been the one beautiful thing in a very, very bizarre, sad, crazy year is meeting folks like yourself and making these connections. So that's the gift out of 2020.
Yeah. I agree. So do you just want to introduce maybe where you are right now and what you're currently working on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in Toronto, Canada. I am grateful to be fully vaccinated and see the city slowly start to come back to life little by little. And right now I'm working on 3 YouTube shows just because it's fun. I've got my baking show. It'll be fine. I host now a monthly variety show called the Wonder Cheese Variety Hour. It's like a 50s themed variety show. It's a good time. And I do a Mary Tyler Moore podcast with my buddy Casey Hackett, another comedian who I've gotten to know doing Zoom. And we just had a love of Mary Tyler Moore and the show. So we do a podcast now. So I'm working on those things, trying to get some writing packets together for some shows. So I'm keeping busy.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Well, so the Mary Tyler Moore, I didn't know about that one. Are you guys watching episodes and then talking about them, or what are you doing?
Yeah, so we've just done one podcast so far where we kind of just went the overall reasons why we love the show. The fact that show still holds up after all these years. We both agree you can watch that and not feel like you're in a different, time zone or anything. You feel like it's pretty up to date. And, as two single gals trying to make our way, there's tons of relatable content in Mary. So we're now going to start getting into certain episodes. Like I know for episode 2, which will be out the first Friday in July, we're going to look at parental relationships. So the relationship Rhoda had with her mom, Mary with her family. We're going to dissect certain themes each episode. So yeah, there's a lot to dive into. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that does sound fun. And shows don't all hold up. I love Frasier, so I've been rewatching it.
Me too.
And now they've announced it's going to come back. But
I know.
Okay, he says some crazy stuff about women. I just remember him saying what sweet angel is this when he saw this woman? It was so cringy. I'm it's so gross. And I've always had this weird thing for Kelsey Grammer too. Yeah. And I know I wouldn't in real life because our politics aren't even aligned at all. But he's just very on that show. I'm just ew, kind of,
There's that's one show I have been rewatching hard. Mm-hmm. I did not get into Tiger King. I am proud of the fact that I have not seen an episode. I do not own an air fryer, but I did spend a lot of time rewatching Frasier. Mm. And yeah, there were definitely certain moments. There was that other guy in the radio station, Mad Dog.
Bulldog.
Bulldog, yeah. Definitely certain lines of dialogue from that show that you're but still super entertaining.
Oh God, it's so great. And I love David Hyde Pierce.
Oh my God.
I don't think I appreciated him enough then because his physical comedy is just beautiful.
Yeah.
It just really is. So
it's just so good. I'm kind of I'm anxious for a reboot because that show definitely could work today. But I think with a lot of stuff, there's such magic in what they did that I kind of, it's like The Princess Bride. Are they still making a remake of that movie? Because they shouldn't.
Didn't they do a thing online over the pandemic? But it was the original cast. I don't know. I'm a little nervous too because it's so good. But yeah, well, that's cool. So it's nice you're doing that. We'll talk about the baking show in a little bit. But I want to talk, I guess, about, you had a big shift in your career, but I'd like to talk a little bit about your career before that and then the shift just to set it up and just, give suspense to this podcast.
Her life goes wrong.
Yeah. But I know, so you've been a writer, so you said 4 plays, right? Which have all been performed, which is cool. And then one that went off Broadway. So you can talk a little bit about your writing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I find a lot of things in my life I just tripped into, fell into and followed a path. There's been no I studied this or I had this on my vision board. I just was in the right moment and was listening well. I feel like that's the one thing I can really hold on to. I listen to my gut, so I trust my gut a lot. But yeah, I as a kid, thinking back to when I was 10 or 11, I knew that I wanted to be involved in television in some aspect. And I started working at my local cable station when I was, I think, about 15 years old. I was the only gal there. I was working on the crew, pulling cables, doing tech stuff. Because I'm fascinated by control room panels and buttons. What do the buttons do? And I got into a college here in Toronto, Centennial College, where, if listeners know of the show Degrassi High, is actually where they shot Degrassi High. So that's where I went to college. And I was in a radio and television broadcasting program and found my way into TV shows by way of production coordinator. I knew I wanted to get in there, totally ignoring the fact that I loved Letterman and I always wanted to get to a comedy club. The signs of what I'm doing now were there, but I wasn't focused on it. And I worked for about 15 years as a production coordinator on sketch comedy shows, home renovation shows like The Property Brothers, Deal or No Deal, the Canadian version. And that was my life. I was behind the scenes, being a part of the machinery of making a show. And I kind of got stuck in a box of everyone knew I was good at scheduling. I was good at booking crews. But my instincts were starting to go, Zemnickus, you need to be writing. You need to be on the other side of this. And I escaped. It was probably about 34 when I made a really big career shift from doing that to waitressing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Which someone may be like, sorry, you did what now? Like, usually you go from waitressing to the cool TV job.
Mm-hmm.
But I went from the cool TV job to, refilling ketchup bottles and making sure there were enough napkins and you had creamer for your coffee because I was miserable. I love TV. But I love creating. And I thought what I was doing was a way into that. And then, as sometimes happens in our lives, we follow a path and we hit a wall. And then you're kind of like stuck in this corn maze of like, how do I get out of this corn maze?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my local diner was looking for a waitress, and the line cook was like, you are here every day. Do you want to work here? And I said, yes. And my life changed.
Yeah. I mean, did it just simplify things for you for a little bit so you could just reflect, or what?
It did. It was kind of like your laundry blowing up or your dishwasher exploding. It was sort of like the proverbial soap and bubbles were everywhere. Mm-hmm. I owned a home and, you're following all the check marks of like being a quote unquote good adult. I had a TV job and I owned property and I was making my way as a single gal, but I wasn't happy. And I was indulging in, wine a little more, and I was noticing things were not working out. And when I made this leap of just saying yes, of like, yeah, I need to clear my head. I got to do something. You're the first person to suggest. I will take your offer. Mm-hmm. And I didn't think much about it, but there was some panic of like, okay, my income just dropped significantly. Mm-hmm. I own a house, but I just kept like my head above water, and I was like, I am going to figure this out, because something in me was like, you're doing the right thing. We're not there yet, but just keep afloat. And I went from, the highly stressful world of TV production and people calling me at all hours of the night because their makeup trailer wasn't ready, to the easy breezy world of serving.
Yeah.
But what that job did was it got me talking to people that I didn't know. It helped me find my voice. It helped me find myself. That would not have happened had I stayed where I was. I don't think we would be talking if I had stayed at that TV job.
Right.
No.
Well, how did you do any kind of job like that either in high school or later? Like, I worked in a shoe store and I worked in the cafeteria and stuff like that. Did you do those kind of jobs where you sounds like you were in TV like forever?
Yeah, I was like a tiny businesswoman from the age of 10. I was, in all honesty, I was applying to colleges for packages when I was in 5th grade.
Wow.
Of like, I remember writing to like an art school in Miami because I knew they had a TV program. I was a very bizarro child. I knew what I wanted. I knew I wanted to be in that magic box in my living room. There was something really, I've got 2 parents who worked in advertising. So the television was like another sibling for me. And I was amazed at all these programs, but my brain wasn't really like, what can I do to do this? I know I want to do that. So yeah, I had a very brief stint at a sporting goods store and I worked for like a week at a video store, but no, whatever internship I could get at a local TV station, I was doing from the age of 14.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the service jobs kind of give you a different perspective on people too.
Oh my gosh.
If you experienced that, but yeah.
I think doing that for the first time at 34, 35, I think that should be like a high school requirement for people to do a service industry job at some point in their life.
Yeah.
Because you're right. People are different when that dynamic changes, like the the status changes, like customer server. People can take some liberties with that. And with my writing storyteller brain, it made for amazing characters. I could just file away.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it did. Did you find yourself then being out of the whole production side of things and having more space to breathe as far as just maybe more spare time, I guess, because you were in a wage kind of job? Is that what led you to being able to start writing?
Well, I've always been that kid that was writing really awkward, angsty poetry. Before my anxiety and panic attacks were diagnosed, writing poetry got me through like my teen years 100%. I've always been a kid who's carried around a notebook and taken notes on lines I heard or written, little plays in my head. Or I've always been a storyteller. And with the working at the diner, I went through a little bit of some major anxiety and some moments of depression of like, what on earth did I just do? Because like folks I had worked on shows with would come in and I'd be getting them a sandwich and I felt really weird because they're like, what are you doing here? And then one day I remember my friend Andrew came in. He was working on a show. They were on their lunch break and he was talking about how rough the day was. And I had this light bulb moment as he left of like, wow, he's got to go be on set for 10 more hours and I need to go eat this sandwich. And this it was like the clouds broke for me. I was like, whoa, I can do whatever I want now. Oh, this is a power move. This is pretty cool. And I just kept up with the journaling. I started playwriting during my TV time. That was like my outlet when I worked on TV shows was either being in my kitchen or playwriting and just writing plays and writing stories. And so it's interesting how those roads all interconnected by the time I was like in my late 30s. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's great though. I think it's kind of almost your sabbatical in a way,
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But, yeah. Cause I mean, that's similar too, but you probably get paid differently. Tell me about how does a drug deal become a decent third date? Now, that's not a question I'm asking you, but I'm asking you. That's the title of your play, just so people know. I'm not like getting weird advice now,
It's a terrible date idea. I'll just put that out there. So the backstory on this is when I worked on this long-running radio, TV, sketch comedy series here in Canada called Royal Canadian Air Farce. It was on for a long, long time. And I worked on the TV version of it. And I was in the lobby. I was coming back up to my desk. I ran into a friend from high school. And he had a buddy with him who was working on the same show he was on. And when our mutual friend left, his buddy was like, Kelly Zemnickis, were you the soup girl? I was like, excuse me? And he, from our mutual friend, had heard this story of when I was in high school and I had a crush on a boy who was sick. I made him soup and brought it to his house. And behind my back, I didn't realize I had been deemed the soup girl because they all thought that was hilarious. And when you are 16, it's kind of weird to bring a crush soup.
Well, that's nice, but then you don't want to be called the soup girl.
I went home, and in this fit of rage-fueled creativity, I started writing down all these things that had happened in my life, romance-wise. One of which was this story of when I think we dated for about a month, but I met a guy in a theater production, turned out to have a side job as a drug dealer.
Yeah.
And one of our dates after dinner, he said, do you want to come run an errand with me? And I said, sure. And on the way, we're driving, and on the way there, he's starting to tell me what to do if the cops come. And it clicked in that I was being prepped to be the lookout. And so I go home with all this rage-fueled creativity. I start journaling all these stories. And that eventually became this one-act play that I wrote called How Does a Drug Deal Become a Decent Third Date? I think it took me, because it was my first play, it took me probably start to finish about 3.5 or 4 years to do. But with all the comedy connections I have here in Toronto, my friends were awesome and up for the job. And we did the Fringe Festival circuit. And as you mentioned, it went off Broadway by some wondrous stroke of luck. Yeah, that's like my little side hustle is playwriting. I haven't dipped into a new play in a few years, but I just love creating these worlds. Ever since I was a kid, I've loved doing that.
So what's it like for you seeing people then interpret your work? I mean, do you direct it eventually or someone else does?
No, interestingly, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a music video director when I discovered like MTV or here in Canada, Much Music. And that was the reason why I went to the college I went to. And I quickly learned I am a terrible director. I'm a very good producer, but I am a terrible director. And so I don't direct. I put on a hat of producer and playwright. And it's kind of like sending your kid off to college. You know, I give the script when it's done to the director, and then this becomes someone else's play that I get to watch grow. And when you have the ability to see your words and your scenes that you created in your mind in your living room late at night come to life, it's trippy. When you can make someone laugh, as you know, doing stand-up, oh my gosh, like I wrote that in my bedroom and now I'm at this club and people are laughing. It's such an amazing, cool thing to do. And when it works, it's great. And when it doesn't, you feel so sad.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's
awesome.
It's incredible how the mood swing you can go through just from that, you know, like, because you anticipate, for me, well, just talking about comedy, but I have the same anticipation prior to the gig or the set. And then after, though, it can go either way. It's like depending on how it went. So it's crazy.
Oh, definitely. You are either having your celebratory beer or you are buying donuts, lots of donuts.
Yeah. It's
questioning your life choices.
Yeah, you are. So
it's crazy.
Have you thought about acting in one of your plays?
You know, it's funny doing stand-up. My memory is akin to Swiss cheese. I write these things, but I'm like, I can memorize this. But I seem to do okay with the stand-up format. Thankfully, knock on wood, that continues. No, I've never had any desire to be in any of the plays I've done. That being said, with the Wonder Cheese Variety Hour, which is a sketch comedy show, I'm now I found in the past couple of years, I'm like, yeah, I want to play on camera a bit more. Let's go down this road a little bit, which is super fun. But ultimately, I'm still that kid who was 14 years old and was mystified by the panel of buttons in the control room. I like providing the words and seeing them come to life. Yeah, I still like being behind the scenes. I still do, you know, despite the fact that I do stand up.
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. Well, and I guess that my question is then with the stand up, though, I mean, you do perform in that case. So a couple things. First of all, is your writing process different for that than it is for the plays, in the sense that, like, do you derive the material from somewhere else, or is it just like, oh, this would be more of a joke or a short bit versus this is something I would turn into a longer form? Yeah,
like my stand-up style, I would deem to be storytelling. You know, I go a bit longer with my things. I'm not so much like joke punchline kind of comic.
Me neither.
But interestingly, the playwriting has been really awesome prep for doing stand-up because, as I say, I've always been someone who's carried around a notebook, who's made like a notation of a comment I've heard or a commercial or something that pops into my head. And that's how I write now. Like, I'm not a comedian who, you know, sets aside an hour at a coffee shop and I write. I do most of my writing in the bathroom. I'm going to be honest with you. Not that I'm on the toilet, but I find the bathroom when I'm having a bath or a shower, my mind is really blank and open. And if I hear a funny line or if that would be a great bit. As soon as I'm out of the shower, I'm writing it down. That's really how I write. I just let it sort of come my way. I have a very loosey-goosey writing style.
No, I'm the same. I mean,
Oh, cool.
I see the value in sitting and writing every day, and I've tried it. And when I've been in classes and stuff, but normally it's kind of like, yeah, I'll just have all these like notes in my iPhone, and then I'll come back to something, and then I'll be like, oh, why did I say that? And sometimes I'll start writing about something different, but it's very similar. Like I don't sit and write for an hour necessarily. It's just like, oh, I have more to do with this now, and then I'm done. And it could be a minute, and I'll feel like I did everything.
And I don't know if you feel this, but like when I have comedian friends who are like, hey, do you want to come? Like when they talk about their process and like, oh yeah, I make sure I write for 2 hours every day. I'm like, I don't do that. Is that okay that I don't do that?
Don't. It's kind of like my athletic friends. I'm like, oh, you work out that much a day? I don't.
That's nice.
I'm like, but I can tell that. But on stage, I'm still pretty much comparable to the people who write 20 minutes a day or whatever. Because sometimes I'm like, well, what are you writing? The same thing over and over? Which, I mean, I'm doing a solo show right now, so I'm rewriting it constantly.
Nice.
And I bet it's similar to the play, but that's what I do. And then do you find like the performance aspect, because you've spent so much time behind the scenes and coordinating and in production, and actually I'm changing the question I was going to ask, because one thing I've noticed is that there are incredibly unorganized people.
What?
In stand-up, for example.
Shocking.
So that's just an observation, I suppose. But do you find it hard not to try to organize things when you see something? Like sometimes I go, if you had a list, like...
Oh, I am not ashamed of the fact that I am a girl who is all about highlighters and charts and graphs. There's always that thinking that, oh, to be a creative person, you have to be messy and like everything has to be everywhere. I am so not. I can't. My friends will joke when I say I'm like tidying my apartment. They're like, is a magazine out of place? Like, what is up? I am organized chaos. That's the best way. Yeah. So I make no bones about, telling someone, hey, a schedule is a great idea. Yeah. I don't care.
Yeah. No. Okay. But then the question I was going to ask first, and then I just had that idea, was just with the performing. Do you enjoy performing your own words and your own work in the comedy realm? And how do you feel like that might be different than, how you would consider about performing in a play, other than the memory thing, but just how is that for you?
It's kind of funny. When I did my first set, I wanted to just challenge myself. It was really like a personal, can you do this? Let's try to jump off this plank. And I did it, and my body just went, yes, 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 bing, bing, bing. You need to do more of this. Yeah, I love it. And I love it just as much as I love writing words for other people and punching up a script. Anything I get to do, and I'm starting to cry because I think maybe the reason why I got into stand-up might be coming up. but anything I get to do in this realm of storytelling, I just feel so damn grateful. Whether I'm doing stand-up or writing a play, it's just as fun. Nothing, it doesn't make me kind of Jones to act in my own play. That's separate. Right. Let me do that thing. Yeah, I just feel very lucky to get to do what I do.
Yeah, and you have that appreciation for what you're getting to do, so you don't need to be the center of attention all the time, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, let me play where you need me. Do you need me to do craft services? Get your sandwiches? I'll be as happy to make your lunch as I will be to do your job. Like, it doesn't matter.
You are a co-producer on a documentary.
Yeah.
Right? No Responders Left Behind. So I want to hear about the documentary, but also I want to hear about, like, because I think a lot of people might not know, and I kind of have an idea of what a producer does. But can you talk about that kind of work as well?
For sure. As I say, like I got into TV production in college thinking I'd be the director, being the person telling you to go here and you to go here and that lighting to go here. And I'm not good at barking orders. I'm not good at that. But what my strength seems to lie in is knowing who to call so you have, all the props. making sure everybody on the team knows what they're doing, making sure there's enough money for lunch. You're organizing all the bits and pieces that nobody is ever going to think about when they see a show. You're making sure the shooting schedule is together, that the executives are happy, the people running the club are happy, the patrons are happy. Is the tech person okay? Do you have the mics? Have the posters been done? Have the Eventbrite's been sent out? Is the Facebook thing up to date? Is someone manning? So you're kind of like managing the circus, and mm-hmm. letting the person on stage shine. That sort of would be like the ringleader of the circus, I guess would be a good way to talk about being a producer.
Yeah, and that translates into, like, if you look at a TV show, it translates into whatever tasks are required for that. And it's really being like logistics and
when it comes to producing like the comedy shows that I do, whether they're in person or online, making sure the listings are out, that if there's any press to do, that gets set up, making sure we have audience, making sure talent gets money. Yeah, just organizing, doing all the tidy up of the apartment, and then making sure there's a good show.
Yeah. So then with no responders left behind, what's the I know, I mean, I've read about it and mm-hmm. seen your posts, but for people who don't, what's it about?
So this is my featured film debut, my documentary debut, and it is about how sick 9/11 first responders are getting in the years since mm-hmm. 9/11, which will be 20 years this September.
Wow.
A lot of people, we'll put that in the past. We'll talk about it as a thing that happened. The towers came down. Incredibly sad. We are moving on. But for thousands and thousands of people, they are dealing with illnesses on a daily basis. Women who were pregnant and at ground zero, the babies that were in utero, they're dealing with illnesses now that resulted from all those chemicals and fumes being in the air. So we're doing a film about how when first responders aren't top of mind, we tend to forget about them. But we do need to keep them in mind when they're out of mind, because they could be dealing with cancers or asthmas or mental health issues or PTSD. And I came upon the story by merely just being a fan of The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, because he was such an advocate for 9/11 first responders. And through an accidental meeting that was spurred by a tweet I sent, 9/11 first responders saw it, and we connected. I immediately, again, light bulb moment, I was like, how can I help you guys? What can I do? And my storytelling instinct kicked in, and I ended up pitching this idea of coming down to film them, and it became the documentary. I follow specifically a man named John Feal, who runs an organization called the Feel Good Foundation out of his home in Long Island. And he was a 9/11 responder. He went down as a construction guy just to help move debris. And he now runs this collective, this agency that helps anybody dealing with the 9/11 illness, no matter if you were just someone passing by or if you were a first responder. And he's just a dude in Long Island. And he is doing the work that I think government officials and people who have much more power than him should be doing. But everybody who needs help with the 9/11 issue goes to John Feal, a guy who lives in a bungalow in Long Island. Huh. He's a saint. The guy's just, it's ridiculous. It's amazing. We have the power to do anything. And he's just such a great example of that. So I'm really happy to tell this story. It's one of those things too, where I think, and one thing I talk a lot about on this podcast is just what you just said, that people can do anything. Like there's the ability. It's just somehow figuring that out for yourself, because a lot of people will limit themselves and no one else has limited them. Absolutely. And John, this is something John says in the film, but a lot of people don't think that they have the right to go down and talk to their elected officials. You elected them. You have the right to talk to them and get on their case and make sure they're doing what they're elected to. They work for you.
Yeah, they
Make them
do.
work for you.
They're getting a salary, and they're getting healthcare, and they're getting
Yeah.
everything off of our taxes that we're
Yeah.
paying.
Yeah. And
You
I
know?
mean, a lot of people think that, oh, if you were a firefighter or a police officer or an ambulance guy and you were at 9/11, you've got insurance to cover all of that. But the fact is, there's limitations to what can be covered. And, we've spoken to so many folks who the medical bills were just like hundreds and thousands of dollars because you're covered for like 2 x-rays. Cool. Your doctor says you need 15 x-rays. You have to pay for the other 13. Mm-hmm. So to me, like as a Canadian covering this story, one thing that really spurred me about wanting to highlight what they're going through and what John is doing was really just out of why on earth is this even a thing? Like, this shouldn't be a thing.
Right.
Right. Just
yeah.
blows my mind,
Well, yeah, being an expat in the UK in the last year, I mean, it's eye-opening, right? Yeah. Because I need to get an MRI annually, and I just went and I didn't have to pay anything. I mean, I'm paying taxes here, and I'm, working and paying taxes and all that, but it's like this thing where I'll call the insurance company and I'll get the list of MRI or radiology providers to find out which one has the best rates for what I need, and then call them and try to get them, because I learned this trick because this insurance lady told me one time. But to have to do that, because they'll send you to the one that's the most expensive, that's affiliated with the hospital, that's not covered by insurance. It's crazy, right? And I don't understand that either. And that's just, and I'm certainly not a first responder or anything, but then just thinking about people who have emergencies or have like chronic illnesses like that or whatever, it's really awful.
The building that just came down in Miami, Florida, that just disaster of disasters.
Yeah.
Doing the work I did on no responders, my thinking is like, how are they going to be in like, a year from now? What are they breathing in that's there? Because like, just as an example, we talk about this in the movie, but like if you break one fluorescent light bulb, not really a big deal. If you think about how many computer screens and fluorescent light bulbs and phones were in that condo building in Miami, that becomes a cocktail of toxins that you're breathing in, that the people passing by 5 years from now may not associate their illness with the fact that they were just around a bunch of computer screens that blew up, right? Because there's stuff in that.
Yeah.
And with the Twin Towers, think about how many fluorescent light bulbs were on each floor. No wonder the sky was green. The stuff coming out of the ground was green. Mm-hmm. And back then, hopefully the folks in Miami have a bit better protection. But my brain immediately went there when I saw the news. I was like, what are they breathing in? Are they going to be okay 6 months from now?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So with this documentary, what's the path forward with it? I know I saw a couple posts about it, but it's funny. Like we finished the film. We were set to do some festival stuff in 2020. The world shut down, and my thought immediately went to, oh my gosh, I have just made the most expensive home movie I'm ever going to make. How are we going to sell this in a pandemic? What's going to happen? Yeah. But festival stuff moved online. Pitch meetings moved online. And Blue Ant Media, which is based out of Toronto and LA and probably other locations that I can't think of right now, but Blue Ant Media reached out and said, we want to distribute this film. So we had an amazing stroke of luck last year. And then just a few weeks back, we got to tell the world that Discovery Plus will be showing our film this September. So people get to see it, and I'm so excited. Yeah. And then from there,
who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. No, well, congratulations. That's really,
Thank you.
It's really remarkable. So how long did it take from when you guys basically tweeted to having it ready?
That tweet I sent was in December of 2015, and we sold the film in May. Well, it was at the end of last year. So 5 years. It was a 5-year process of that tweet to landing Discovery. So
wow. So how do you deal with these things having like this long tail, kind of these processes for you? I think one thing that could happen is maybe people, and maybe even myself, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not necessarily speaking for myself right now, people might get discouraged by something taking too long. How have you dealt with that?
This is not a quick way to financial freedom. This is not a fast track to getting your name on an AMC movie screen, especially because I'm doing documentary. I'm not doing a Fast and Furious. I'm not there, although those are very entertaining films. But this is because you love to do it. This is not for the faint of heart. And this is my first documentary. I'd never made a documentary before. But I'm a storyteller, and I knew that there was a story there that if I didn't know who John Feal was, chances are you don't know who John Feal is.
Right.
There's someone else in my circle who doesn't know who this man is. And he's such an example of the power of community that I'm like, I've got to talk about this because A, you are just a legit hero, and B, your government should be doing this. You shouldn't be doing this. Mm-hmm. So it's, you gotta get in the roller coaster cart and just brace yourself and have patience. Like this film, I guess it's been about 2 years now that Jon Stewart was back in Congress, made this very impassioned plea. Prior to that happening, I'd say 6 months prior to that happening, our film was done. Our film was finished.
Wow.
We thought we had this buddy road picture kind of thing between John Feal and a man named Ray Pfeiffer and Jon Stewart too. And we thought we had this like buddy film, It didn't really have like a big flashy ending, but we told an interesting story of friendship. And then we found out that one of the streams of funding that they had gone for was almost out of money. And the Jon Stewart thing happened. And it was like the film gods went, here is an ending that you couldn't have put together in post. So we had to get back down to America, hire the camera guys again, get back on the horse, recut the film. And, a lot of friends were asking me over the past 5 years, like, when's your movie going to be done? And it's like, well, it's still a work in progress. Oh, it's taking a long time. Yeah, documentary filmmaking, you do it because you believe in the story and you're passionate about it and you are not in it for the money.
Yeah.
If money comes, amazing. But that's never been my mode of operation for anything I do. If I can make something that makes you laugh, makes you think, brings a tear to your eye, I've done my job. If I get paid for it, icing on the cake.
Yeah.
But never the intention. It's like getting into comedy, wanting to be at Just for Laughs or wanting to do a big show in the UK. Or if that is your goal, you have set yourself up for failure before you even start,
Yeah.
Do it because you love it, Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even, in general performing, it's like a matter of just getting on the stage is the accomplishment, Yeah.
Yeah.
And then being the best or funniest or getting laughs and whatever. Then it's all just kind of adding on.
Yeah, that's all gravy. Like if you work on your craft and you enjoy what you do, then the Just for Laughs stuff will come, Yeah. It's that cart before horsing, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as far as you getting into comedy, you have a definite story that there was a turning point for you there too. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. As I was telling you earlier, when anyone asks me, how did you get into stand-up? Because most comics, I think, I was the class clown. I was that kind of person. I started doing stuff in clubs in Toronto as a technician back when I was a teenager, when I was that tiny business person, with an admiration for the people I was setting up the mics for. And then when, again, like 34 to 36 was such a turning point in my life. But my first boyfriend, the love of my life, my bestie, found out he had cancer, and he found out way too late. And he, from diagnosis to his passing, wasn't that long. And for me, we had a big conversation in January of 2016. It ended up being our final phone call. And I left that phone conversation with this feeling of, I need to go try every single gosh darn thing on my list because I am able to. James is probably never going home. And I looked at myself and I was like, you are doing stand-up. And I found an open mic to do in Toronto. And I did it a week later. I was just like, dive into everything. He left me, because he never got to see me do stand-up. He died about 2 months later. But he left me with the power of saying yes, you know, which I always had in me, but I don't know if you've had someone in your life like this, but he believed I could do things before I realized I could. He was an amazing coach.
Yeah.
And his getting sick was, I don't want to call it a gift.
Right.
It opened my eyes. I'm crying. I cannot talk about this.
Well, that's okay. Because anybody who's listening who knows me knows I'm crying. So yes.
But his getting sick gave me a lot of clarity, which I don't know I would have had. It may have taken me a lot longer to figure out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I understand that.
Yeah. It was a nice parting gift.
Yeah. I understand that completely because there's people I've lost who it was funny. I was just talking to my mom about this recently, and even doing this, I'm sure has something to do with that too, doing this podcast, but I've lost people, and I lost one of my best friends too. He was kind of a mentor and kind of like a brother to me. I've lost my brother too. And I think the thing is sometimes I'll get peace or still before a show or whatever, because I think they would have been proud.
Yeah.
Or like I'll do things, you know, like there's some charity work I do specifically in honor of my brother.
Oh, awesome.
And that's the way I can just, you know, almost be okay with it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, like
so I get it.
Yeah, like we're, you know, talking about having those shows that don't go well, and I don't feel it every show, but because I can feel when he's in the room. I know when James is here, it's a hard thing to describe, but if I see you nodding, like if you know they're there. And I have these moments where even on when things don't go well, and I'm like, why am I doing this? I can just hear him like, this is amazing you're doing this.
Yeah.
Like, this is insane. This is amazing. I am so proud of you. Look at you. It didn't go well. Yeah, but you did it, you know? He swore a lot. So think of a lot of F-bombs dropped. But he was so proud of me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. I think the people who see you the most clearly, and certainly more clearly than you see yourself, are special. And if
you can evoke that feeling that they gave you by honoring them, by doing something that, you know, kind of that, you know, they would love that you did. That's the cool thing, you know?
Yeah. The night James and I met, which was at Second City in Toronto, at the old fire hall, where, you know, SCTV kind of roots got started there. At the end of the show, because my friends were performing, the troupe I teched for was performing, and I chose to be audience because I knew James was in the booth. And afterwards, he's like, why didn't you tell me you were, like, you could have asked to be in the booth and run the show? I was like, no, it's your booth. I'm not going to do that. And he was like, well, I'm working on a theater show. Why don't you be my assistant stage manager? I was like, you've known me for 40 minutes. Like, you sure? He's like, yeah, you're in. You're doing it. It was love at first sight. Like, it was friendship at first sight. It was, he would be so chuffed that I'm doing this. Like, he would just be, he would think this is great. This is gravy. This is awesome.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
well, I mean, thanks for sharing that, because I know that's difficult, but I think it's, people lose people, and especially in the last year, people lost a lot of people. And I think that it's hard to always know how to deal with that. I think it's hard to just understand, because I hate when people say, oh, it was their time or something, because it just drives me nuts. But it's like, okay, fine, that's your opinion. But I just think that there's just different ways we can all remember people. So I think this is a beautiful way you're remembering him. So thanks for sharing that.
Oh, anytime you can talk, and you speaking of your brother, I think anytime we can talk about people we lose just brings them back into the room,
Mm-hmm.
which we're doing them a service by doing that. And that way they don't, completely vanish.
Yeah. Yeah. Our memories are special.
Yeah.
Well, I do appreciate it, though, you doing that.
That's a good thing. Now he'd tell me to cheer up and have a Guinness.
I know. Now I'm like, whoa, what do I ask? I'm supposed to be the host? So now, changing subjects, but also talking about stuff that you love doing. It'll Be Fine baking show. How did that come about?
Such an appropriate title for the pandemic.
Yeah.
But interestingly, something that was so nothing to do with the pandemic, that came about from having a couple of girlfriends over, baking something. I was just having a girls' afternoon, and I kept muttering, "It'll be fine." Because this cake was not working at all. And I was like, Janice, it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Lisa, it's going to be fine. And I kept saying it. I was like, you know what? That would be a really good name for a baking show.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's just an awesome name for a show. And as it happened, a bunch of Toronto comics, and this would have been, I think, August of 2019, a bunch of Toronto comics decided to do a 24-hour comedy show on this thing called Twitch, which I hadn't really heard of. And they were having people, which I can laugh now, but at the time I was like, how's this going to work? They were having stand-ups do comedy on their laptop. Think about what happened months later.
Yeah.
So they were having folks do that. And I said, well, I don't think I want to do stand-up to nobody. But can I pitch my cooking show idea? And it got accepted. And I filmed It'll Be Fine, a baking show for this 24-hour comedy thing. And I had such a blast doing it. I was like, why don't I do another one? And by the time the world shut down, I think I had done... I think by March, I'd done maybe 12 episodes of the show. And I'm just about to air my 140th episode.
Amazing.
You're going to be coming on soon.
Yeah, I'm coming on.
It's going to be so much fun.
My sister's probably going to be annoyed that I'm doing a baking show and she's not.
But doing it on Zoom has been just a blast, because now I can bake and cook and talk with people from all over. Now that myself and friends are double vaxxed, I'll have people back in the kitchen, but now I get to do a hybrid of it. Yeah. So, I thought maybe we'd do 200 and I'd stop, but who knows? I don't know. It's fun. Cooking and baking is my zen. So it's a blast. And then I get to talk to people. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and that's so funny about the comedy. I didn't want to perform to no one. Yeah, well, get used to it. Fast forward.
I feel like that festival opened up some portal that no one was realizing.
I know, I'm almost like, maybe they're to blame.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
So that's how that got started. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, that's great. I'm looking forward to it. And who knows when this will go up versus that, but definitely we'll share it anyway and share all your stuff in show notes and my website. But is there anything we didn't cover that you want to cover?
I guess just letting folks know they can go to my YouTube channel and see all the crazy things I'm doing, be it the variety show with Wonder Cheese or the podcast or, the baking show. And occasionally, my stand-up sets get tossed on there too. I'm just, trying. The I'm just making my own content. You know, I'm not waiting for anyone to like give me a show. I'm just making my own stuff and having fun. So
Yeah.
I think that's the way to do it. Just have fun.
Yeah, that's cool. And I usually ask if you have any advice or mantra you want to share. Is that it? Or do you have any other?
If listeners can't see, just think hard and you can see my shoulder. But I have a tattoo on my back. I got my very first tattoo after James died. So I was, 38 when I got my first tattoo or something. But my thing, I have two things that I live by. The shoulder, which says, "You're braver than you believe and stronger than you seem and smarter than you think," which is Christopher Robin, Winnie the Pooh. And then my other mantra is from Amy Poehler's book, Yes, Please, which is just do the thing.
Huh.
Simple, but just stop talking about what you've been wanting to do. Try it. If it doesn't work out, do something else.
Well, cool. No, that's nice. Well, thank you for sharing that too.
Oh, my pleasure.
So now we have the last 5 questions. They're called the Fun 5.
Yay.
So, let's see. So the first one, what's the oldest t-shirt you have and still wear?
My New Kids on the Block Magic Summer 1990 shirt in white, which according to eBay is worth about $250.
Oh, wow. That's a nice. Yeah.
Because it's white. I guess they didn't make a lot of the white shirt.
That's the white shirt. Okay. And that was unnecessary to do. Okay. All right. If every day was really Groundhog's Day, like it's kind of seemed at least a little, not too far in the past, what song would you have your alarm play every morning?
Oh my gosh. That's a really good question. I think just because I was listening to the cassette, because I still listen to cassettes.
You're such a hipster millennial person or something.
A roller skating jam named Saturday by De La Soul.
Okay.
It's a great tune. It's off of De La Soul is Dead, which is like my desert album island pick.
Oh, cool. All right. Good. I look forward to checking that out. Actually, I don't even know it, but I have a Spotify
just
playlist.
put it on Facebook today. So go to my Facebook page.
Okay. Yeah, I do see that you put songs on there. Okay, cool. All right. Very important one. Coffee or tea or neither?
Coffee.
Any sort of way or?
Black.
Could be black. Okay. Yeah, that's what I've ended up with too. Cool. All right. Yeah. And can you think of a time that you laughed so hard you cried or just couldn't stop, or maybe something that makes you do that when you conjure it?
There have been moments where I mean, you don't do it as much now, but I would go to like a greeting card store and my mother and I would just be doubled over laughing at Hallmark cards. I have such beautiful like memories in my head of like, because I'm a girl who, even now, I still send cards and postcards, you know, birthday cards, actual birthday cards. And I've just doubled over. My mom and I will get on fits of laughter where we almost throw up. We're just laughing so hard.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Do you remember, can you think of one that's like crazy? Those shoebox ladies are always funny. That lady.
The shoebox ladies are always funny. I have taken to the past few years, and I did it just now for Father's Day, where I will go to like another section of the card store, like congrats on your graduation, and scratch out graduation and write congrats on Father's Day. Like I make my own cards from the other cards.
That's fun.
So that's always a trip. I gave my dad and my brother, my youngest brother, who's got a couple kids, I did that with theirs. I got like, you know, congrats on your 9th birthday. Congrats on Father's Day.
That's great. Cool.
I love doing that. Yeah.
All right. And the last one, who inspires you right now?
Oh man, who inspires me right now? That's another really good question. Geez, I really don't know. I'm around so much awesome energy every day doing online comedy and, you know, specific names like my fellow Toronto comic Desiree Walsh, you know, doing the online hustle like holy moly. I love seeing friends with drive, you know, just I want to say everyone's around me is inspiring me. Science is inspiring me. I've got my vaccine. I can get back to life, you know. I feel like the world just, for me right now, things feel optimistic. And as much fun as I've had in the past year amidst the chaos, I didn't really feel like a light at the end of the tunnel. And so there's just a collective with everyone doing and creating. Everyone's giving me optimism and hope. So that seems very like flighty 60s kind of style answer, but
you were listening to cassette tapes here.
Yeah.
Get your 8-track out next, I guess. No, I think that's a nice answer. I mean, there's been a shift for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's something, like I'm getting on an airplane next month for the first time in a year and a half. And I will put money down. I will hug the pilot. Just so excited. Yeah. Yeah, I just feel like there's a lot of hope around. There just feels like a collective. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I'm going to enjoy it while I feel it. Hopefully it lasts for a long time.
Cool. Well, and again, people should look you up on YouTube, and I'll include that link everywhere. But thanks so much, Kelly. This was a great conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. This was awesome.
Thanks again for listening this week. You can find out more about the guest in the show notes and at robbiasaid.com. Joe Maffia created the music just for this podcast. Find him on Spotify. That's Joe, Maffia. And Rob Metke is responsible for our visual design. You can find him online by searching for Rob, Metke. Thanks, Rob. Let me know who you'd like to hear from or about your own experiences defining yourself outside of work. Follow at More Than Work Pod or send a message on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Or visit our website, morethanworkpod.com. Give us a follow on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, and leave a review if you like. Thanks for listening to More Than Work. While being kind to others, don't forget to be kind to yourself.